Residents of Garissa County may disagree with you on that, and I'd like to introduce you to my panel just as we get into our discussion right here, and we'll tackle that question in just a moment. On my extreme left, Ahmed Nadir Omar, who's a politician right here. He was running mate in the race for governor in this country. In this county, rather. And then we also have Boniface Mwangi, who's a photojournalist and activist, and Salah Abdi Sheikh, author, Blood on the Runway, all of them who are with us here. Salah, just before we get into the discussion and some more on this, in terms of solutions, what are your sentiments on what the president has said? Nobody is being targeted, let's move forward. But then again, on the other hand, there's lots of people that do feel they are being targeted. What's that middle ground? What's it going to take?
I think it's good for the president to say that nobody's being targeted, and it's good for everybody else who is in the administration to actually take that point, that they should take it nobody. What happened in Salama Watch, what is happening around, actually reflects the colonial system of doing things. It has not changed with the new constitution. The rights of the population is being violated, the rights of individuals are being violated. So I think the stance that the president has taken that nobody should be targeted, which I think I will read it to be, it is not nobody's being targeted, but nobody should be targeted, should move to the level of the operational level, to the security forces, to the county commissioners, and to everybody else is involved in this in the security.
So that should trickle down towards the operational level.
To the operational level.
Okay, nobody should be targeted, but some people may disagree and say they are indeed being targeted. Case in point, the Garissa market, November 2012, was burnt down by security forces, the KDF to be specific. And Ferdinand Omondi, who's been with us here, took a walk into that Garissa market right here this afternoon to take a look at the aftermath. How have the lives changed since November 2012? Who are some of those who lived through that experience? And what is the sentiment on the ground as far as being targeted, the fight against terrorism, and the relationship between the residents of Garissa County and the security forces? Take a look at this story.
This is Mama Kaltuma in her daily activity to eke out a living. She sells vegetable at the main markets in Garissa Township. Under the scorching sun, she is determined to make things work. Mama Kaltuma is among the women still reeling from a massive loss she incurred when Garissa market went up in flames.
Anachoma jeshi soko saa 8 ya mchana, anajaba sisi anaweka ndani ya maji.
She says everything was lost in the fire, leaving her destitute. She recalls sleeping hungry, even having to beg as a result.
Sasa nachukua mafayasa deni skesi kabata toto na tufuta hapo kakosa na lala kabata na saidia na tu hivyo hakuna namna nyingine.
They banned raw material worth of 20 million here. They have banned cars. They have beaten the manager in their pursuit in the war against terror.
Back at home, a house she was constructing remains unfinished. She no longer has the funds to complete her project. What pains her more is watching her 2 children, high school-going students, stay at home for lack of school fees. Mama Kaltuma is a widow and has no one else to turn to.
That's
not all. Nearly every business person in this market has an axe to grind with the armed forces as they count their losses and endeavor to get back on their feet.
Mali yote imehasarika, vile mmesemekana tupatiwa saida, hakuna msaada mtupatiwa. Mpaka sasa tunangoja.
Na sisi zote naona kama hana serikali hapa. Kwa maana hata siku moja sisi iko rais ya Kenya hii hata wakati ndio alishomeka hiyo soko, kila mtu TV yote ndio Kenya yote ndio tumeona, na hakuna mtu anakanyaga hapa wanasaidia hata dururu moja.
After lots of hue and cry, the government typically set up a special committee to inquire into the destruction, and has often been the case in similar situations in Kenya. The report is yet to be released. It's a long and painful wait for the traders here who are seeking compensation. Ferdinand Omondi, KTN, Garissa.
Indeed, that is a situation that persists, and it is from that point that maybe you'd be able to understand the fear, the skepticism that exists here. Ahmed, what is the situation like? What's the aftermath? What's the mood, specifically with the incident that took place in the market in November 2012?
Well, what indeed happened was a very sad situation, and it has created hatred. What I could say is that the government, and particularly the KDF, has invested massively in having hatred in the people for them. And what the people right now are feeling, and what any resident in Garissa, be it the common man in Chief, be it be a leader, be it be any person, including myself, today is feeling is that it does not feel, or she does not feel protected by the KDF. Rather, we see an enemy in the KDF. And we are terrorized, and the residents here are very much terrorized. So the aftermath is that seeing an enemy in the very person, in the very institution that you will have sought protection in the first place. I mean, there will be always that enmity, there will be no friendship, and there will be no, sharing of information or anything.
All right, Ahmed, such a heavy sentiment, and understandable perhaps from the experiences and the perspectives of the people here. Is there a way forward at all? Because we're painting such a grim picture. There's a lot of people that are saying, but there's got to be a way forward. What would that be for you?
Well, there will always be a way forward, and there can be always an exit of, from any situation. I mean, there's no situation in this world that can be so bad or so extreme that there can be no way of getting out of it. But then when we always, talk to the government, we had the county commissioner yesterday here, and he was talking about the people being involved. But what I will say is that it will start from the government owning up. The government has to admit that it has wronged its people, and this is what happened. It was indeed, maybe it was not a government policy, although we see it as a government policy anyway, but let the government come out clearly and tell us it's not a government policy. It was the actions of some individuals, and then they apologized to the people, and where possible, they talk to the people and bring the people closer. And unless the government owns up, admits, and apologizes to the people, I don't think we can really get out of this situation. Otherwise, it will be some sort of cosmetic solution. But
some would say, Boniface, that simply saying I'm sorry, for the president to simply say I'm sorry, is also cosmetic.
I think you should start with an apology is good. It shows that you're willing to actually apologize for what you did. But there's a need for reparations. That woman, her kids can't go to school. You need to pay her and what she lost. There's a lady who was yesterday who lost her husband. You need to compensate her. You want to bring the husband back to life, but you're going to actually ensure that her life is more comfortable than it is right now. But I think there's actually another need of actually trying to win the hearts of the Garissa people. The Garissa people see police as an enemy, the army as an enemy. I was being told about when you see a police officer start running away, because if you don't have money, pesa for sukari, they normally ask for bribe. Sukari, they will arrest you. Garissa is one of those places. Garissa and Pangani police station are some of the highly sought postings by police officers. If you want to actually get rich, either come to Garissa or go to Pangani police station. Why? Because Somalis cash point. It's an ATM. It's a walking ATM. Whether you have an ID or don't have an ID, you're always suspicious. You're always suspected. And the other thing is actually the media has failed the Kenyan Somalis, because every time you arrest a terrorist or someone who is alleged terrorist, you say Somali ethnic. If you arrest Mwangi as a Kikuyu thief or a pedophile, you don't say a Kikuyu pedophile or a Kikuyu criminal. You say a criminal was arrested. When it comes to actually this community, when there's actually crackdown, they say Somalis. The other thing actually you need to understand, the government sent their troops to Isili to target who? Somalis. So there's xenophobia by the government. And until Uhuru shows by leading the way and apologizing and say that you're going to pay what they lost, nothing will happen. And actually, I think the other thing is actually punish anyone demanding bribes from the community. Let the community be a partner in the war against terror.
Okay, all right. Saying I'm sorry, and then from there, moving towards reparation, winning the hearts and minds, something interesting that Boniface has brought up. How would we begin to do that?
I think the first thing probably should have been done is remove security forces from the towns and put them, like now the KDF is right in the middle of town. Anything can happen here, and when something happens, they invade the town.
Salah, some would say that is for
it's not for security,
safety and the protection of the citizens and the residents.
To protect citizens internally in this country, it's the job of the police. It's not the job of the military. Military is an external protection. So why are we having in northern Kenya, every town, the military is within the actual town? So I think the first thing they should have done, the land here is free. There's land everywhere. So they should actually remove these guys and put them in their own camp outside the town. So that what we have here is policing, not a militarized zone. So we should remove the militarization of northern Kenya. Maybe the second thing is, as he said, the government hasn't acknowledged from 1963 what has been happening. Nothing has been acknowledged so far. You know, it hasn't even said we have done anything.
The Wagala massacre, though, was acknowledged.
They have not acknowledged. It is the TJRC has written a report. But the Kenya government has not come to tell us, actually, they take ownership of what happened in responsibility for Wagala, Malkamari, Turbi, all the things bad things that happened in this side of Kenya, which were done by the military and the police. The government hasn't taken responsibility for it. So the first thing is, are they actually responsible? And the second thing is, why does it keep recurring? How many times was this market actually banned? Is it the first time, or is it the second, the third, or the fourth time? So every time something happens, we do what we call operations, swoops. Now, swoop is not a way of keeping peace. You do operations when you have intelligence, when you know whom you're going to do operations against. So I think the idea of intelligence, the idea of collection of evidence, the idea of individual responsibility rather than collective responsibility should be promoted.
All right. Yeah. So finding the specific culprits. Yeah. If there's a crime that's been committed, say it is so and so, and that is the person you're going to look for. Some interesting things there, and we'll get into the issues a little bit more. But also, Boniface, there's people who are watching today from what we coined yesterday as their Gardens of Eden, sitting and saying, well, but that's happening in Isli. That's happening in Garissa. That's happening to the people in Samburu or the Ogiek. How does that affect me? They are unpatriotic, and so, whatever's happening there will not affect me. There's lots of people who can't see the relationship between this Kenya and the other Kenya.
Garissa is part of this country. I think a few years ago, Garissa was one of the safest cities in the whole country.
That's right.
And I think because the government entered Somalia and then opened the borders, Garissa is a very unsafe city. But the thing is, and you have to realize this, that if Garissa is unsafe, Nairobi is unsafe. If they don't feel Kenyan, you won't feel Kenyan, because if he turns his heart against Kenya, he's going to allow people to come into the country. And so there's no way you're going to be safe in Kilalashwa or Runda or State House or Karen if Garissa is not safe, because it's the broken window. If the window is broken, the enemy is going to come in. And I think we need to look at Garissa as Kenyans, and we need to actually end that thing of Kenyan Somalis. They're Kenyans. There's no Kenyan Kikuyus, Kenyan Ogiek, or Kenyan Karen Muzungu. It's actually Kenyans. Already, I think there's been systematic discrimination of Somalis in this country. And we mistake them with Somalis from Somalia.
That's why we always have to make that distinction, eh?
Yeah, and
Kenyan of Somali origin and Somali of Somali origin.
The Somalis actually in either the Dab camp or in Somalia.
Right.
But the residents of Garissa are Kenyans.
But then we would not hear Masais of Tanzania origin.
That's right.
We don't hear Tesos of Uganda origin. So I think the other thing is, actually, where is the control point for borders in this country? Is it at Tana River Point here? Or is it supposed to be in Liboy, somewhere?
But
200 kilometers
between here and Nairobi, there are 14 checkpoints. And the question is, Garissa and Northern Front is the only place, even right now, you have military camps everywhere. You can't move without seeing a military vehicle, military police, and everything. Why have we militarized this part of the country? Why have we done that? And guess what? Even after all that, this is the only route that actually imports illegal sugar. This is the sugar highway.
That's right. That's right.
So there are Mabonyenye. We have sugar barons in Nairobi benefiting from this road, but even that stealing and evading of taxes doesn't trickle down to the people of Garissa. But they use this highway to import sugar and even do smuggling. The Garissa people don't smuggle people to Nairobi. It's immigration and the police who smuggle people to Nairobi, not the Garissa residents.
There's a lot of bashing of the government, Ahmed, and rightfully so. Do the residents of Garissa have any responsibility towards also bringing them closer, to other Kenyans? Any responsibility whatsoever?
Honestly speaking, the government has failed in its duties. The government has failed in its obligations. The government has failed in ensuring that people have their rights, and it has turned down the rights now of the privileges that we are very much after. What's happening right now is that it is the responsibility of the government to watch our borders. It's the responsibility of our government, whether our borders are porous or not. We pay taxes. The government has enough revenues, you know, to take care of all of that. It's not our worry to know, I mean, what's happening in the border. I mean, in terms of security and everything.
I agree with you on that point, but to the point where, and you will hear security forces saying this all the time, that we have, you know, very little cooperation between the residents and the police, and understandably so. But is there any sort of responsibility on the part of the residents?
Well, two things here. There is always the responsibility of the residents.
And what would that be?
What every person has been saying here since yesterday is that Garissa people and the northern people largely are peace-loving people, because they know what insecurity means and insecurity is all about. But then they cannot undertake their responsibilities when the government is not undertaking its obligations, number one. And number two, there is no way you can undertake your responsibilities when the government officials themselves are very corrupt.
Okay.
I feel, for instance, I feel very unsafe to report the case of a criminal when I know that the police there that I report to will always cooperate with that criminal and tell the criminal that it's the one who informed them, and then I'll end up being shot or being assassinated by the criminal there. So I mean that's what's happening.
Salah?
Probably the responsibility of the residents and maybe the people of northern Kenya is that we have never been able to actually claim the rights that we have under the constitution. This is the only place where people don't demonstrate. This is the only place where people don't show outrage. This is the only place where we allow things to just go on the way it is for 50 years. But and I have been doing this work of making noise since 1997, and I think we were very few. A number of people who have dared to go to the streets, not more than 5. The maximum we went was 20 people. And you see, there are 2.3 million people living in this this part of the country. So I think I understand the sentiment. But the idea is this: nobody's going to give you these rights. These rights are given
unless you
by God and by the constitution of this country. So unless you claim it, unless you make noise, unless you show that you are outraged, you know, in this country, in this part of the country, this is the only place. If you go to Wajir, 1,440 students did the KCSE last year. 104 qualified to university. You know, that is, you know, I don't know how to describe it. I don't know. So they don't even show outrage at that. You know, you can see the road. You have driven on this road.
Yes.
It took me 3.5 hours to come from Nairobi.
Right.
It will take me a day or two to reach Mandera. So this is the only place where there are only 7 kilometers of road tarmacked in the whole of northern Kenya.
All right, Boniface?
But there's a reason for that. There's a lot of ignorance. There's lack of education, lack of health facilities. They don't educate their girls. There's a lot of, if you look at this town, there are not so many women. We had a meeting yesterday, there were very few women. I've walked around, women are kept away, it's cultural. There's FGM. There's actually, they don't practice family planning, so everything is unplanned. And everything is left to nature.
But isn't that also their culture and their lifestyle that must be respected and allowed to carry on? Some things have to change because, number one, you need to actually value education and find ways actually, like the county government of Garissa should spend money on education. Number two, the reason why people want to go to protest is clanism. There's a lot of clanism here. You find that the dwellers from this clan, the governors from this clan, the other person is from this clan. So there's lack of unity. So as we struggle with tribalism in the other Kenya, they struggle with clanism, which means they can come together and work together. And the other thing actually, so for them to actually push one issue, they cannot do that because they don't have unity. But beyond that, if I've been discriminated... And whose responsibility is that when it comes to unity?
The educated masses from this community. The other thing actually, let me say the last thing before you respond, please. Because I think you lose my track of
Okay, all right.
The other thing is, if you have been denied your rights for so long, you don't know how it feels to be right. As in now, every time they try to do the right thing, they think they're doing the wrong thing because they don't even know what the right thing is.
So it's a conditioning.
From where they are right now, because they've been actually been vilified, discriminated, and suffered for so long, they become victims for so long, they don't know how to become courageous.
Okay, interesting point. And we'll come back to you, Salah, in a moment, but I'd like to bring in Ahmed for a moment. Yes, we do accept and perhaps respect the culture, but there are some that, you know, as a nation, we're trying to do away with, FGM and educating the girls. And also, Boniface has talked about unity amongst, you know, the minorities in this particular region. Is that also something that needs to be addressed from within?
Yeah, obviously, for us to move forward and I mean, for things to change, there are lots of things that needs to be addressed internally, and there are those things that need to be addressed externally.
Okay.
I will not be in a position to know at this point in time whether we start with those things that are internal or the things that are external. Or
but can't the two happen concurrently? Yes, it doesn't have to be one or the other first.
I will not know immediately. But then the fact is that, yes, there is a lot of things that need to be corrected, and very fast. And all starts with some of those things that will be very much complicated and complex in nature. Is one, to start with the clanism. I think that's the root cause of all the evils that we see in northern Kenya, like bad leadership and corruption and everything. Because what actually happens there, and Salah will very much agree with me, is that if Salah here is my brother and he comes from my clan and he is involved in some scandal or anything, or he does not undertake his responsibilities as a civil servant, I will do everything to protect him, to raise money for him, to corrupt anyone, to have him in that position. And you see, at the end of it all, he's a civil servant and serving the people of Garissa. At the end of it all, I'm harming, or he's a contractor, rather, and undertaking some project or road project or health facility or anything in Garissa. So at the end of it all, I'll be harming the people of Garissa.
And harming yourself.
So it's harming myself. Yes. So what will happen? What happens is that unless otherwise we address that issue of clanism, which is a very complex thing altogether, we will not move forward. And to add on to that now, why is it very hard for us to address some of these challenges that we have? It all goes back to ignorance. And who is responsible for this ignorance? I mean, the community, at one point, all Kenyans were not ready to go for education. Let's say during the colonial times, in the 60s and all that, we were seeing this as a foreign thing. But at one point in time, we reached a point where all people were seeking education and all that. It is the government that has massively invested. We do not want to be seen as people who are having victim mentality and blaming the government for everything.
Right.
But some things are so institutionalized, they have been there for all along, that the government has not invested in the education of the people. And unless the people are educated very well, they will not know their rights, they will not know how to fight their rights, they will not be knowing how to undertake their responsibilities, they will not be going off these cultures that are so taking them back.
Okay. Salah, of course, it's about education, and some people, well, generally the population here not being as educated as they'd like. But there's a few, you know, like yourself, and I'm sure there's very many other, you know, we have Ahmed here as well. And this is what many people are asking. There's very many professionals who've come from Garissa, educated people that we know of there. Is there nothing that the educated, shall we say, diaspora, for the fact that they're living in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and outside the country as well, is there nothing that they can do? Because we're looking at solutions from everywhere. What of those who are educated? What impact can they possibly have on some of these issues Ahmed is bringing up?
I think the most educated people here are actually fighting several battles, and one of them is when society like this is neglected, and you know, there is no facility, there is no health center, there is no school, there's nothing, then they become the insurance for everybody. So we are a source of remittance to keep northern Kenya alive. They work in Nairobi, and they remit all the money that you see for using here from Nairobi. So that's one way. But the thing is, this is sort of a beaten society. It is we're more like a defeated kind of people. When you are defeated, you eat yourselves.
But Salah, you are one of the educated people, and you don't strike me as defeatist. And we've had you on Checkpoint a number of occasions. Are you not able to bring that expertise here and change the mindsets?
Look, we're trying. That's why we're here. But if you look at what's happening in Mandera, the question is, and I have asked this before, nobody knows what is at stake. So why are they killing each other? Why are they fighting all the time? It has something to do with feeling not adequate enough to actually face your problems. You are now killing each other. So one of the things that we're having is there is no, if there were enough hospitals in Mandera, if the road was there for people to actually move from one place, for Kenya to actually move from Kenya to go to Mandera, I think things will have been very different. So developments like Lapset, if you look at Lapset, the map of Lapset bypasses Nordistan completely. It does not pass through Garissa. It passes, I think, 5 or 6 kilometers this way. You understand? It doesn't pass through Cielo. It passes 5 kilometers above Cielo. And it passes through hills and valleys, avoiding all this, you know, flat land, tripling the cost of the project. is going to Moyale. If you want to go to Moyale, the right place to pass through Garissa, through Wajir, direct to Moyale. But they are willing to pay 3 times the price to avoid this region.
But why is that?
So that's the question we're trying to ask. So is there somebody who has a solution in mind for us? You know, a solution which we don't know.
Okay. and I will still not let you off on the point of persons who are educated and coming back and doing, you know, some small projects. And I understand what you talked about with the remittances. Boniface, you wanted to add something to that?
No. Actually, the Mandera issue.
Yes.
Actually, let's talk about clan. So as much as the government is killing the Somali people, the Borana, the Gabra, they're killing each other. And so if there's no unity, and the other thing is actually, Garissa got 4.8 billion from the central government. How is the money being used? Because some of the richest people from this county are in government, they are members of parliament, they're police officers, they're civil servants. Why can't you name and shame the poor stealing money from the poor? Because there's money coming to this community. There's people paying taxes in Garissa, but the money is not trickling down. Garissa may have been the safest city, but right now it's one of the dirtiest cities.
And Boniface, I think that challenge would go to Ahmed, who was running for deputy governor. County governments, devolution, that was deemed to be the solution. Are the priorities being addressed on the local level?
Well, I have to be very brutal with the truth here. I mean,
and not just because you lost the election.
No, not because I lost the election anyway.
All right.
What's happening is that in the entire northern Kenya, and I'm not talking about the Garissa County here per se, I think there are a lot of complaints that are coming from the local people. That yes, there are a lot of development projects that are undergoing, but there is no one single project in which the people have been involved. It's like someone somewhere is deciding for the people on what to do for them.
But the people also have to be involved in the county development. And this is what we know was the difference between devolution and you know, the case we had before.
Exactly. You know,
the people can also present themselves to the county government and say, I want to know what the budgets look like and what you're spending the money on.
Unfortunately, devolution is becoming like devolving what was happening in the central government. Like someone somewhere was sitting in a boardroom in Nairobi and deciding for the people of Garissa. The same thing is happening here. A clique of people, a clique of business people, plus some corrupt county officials are sitting somewhere and deciding for the people what needs to be done for the people. And at the end of it all, you'd find that the people would not be so happy. They don't feel actually the change, the difference between the old system and the new system.
What are you doing about that specifically? What are you doing
about it? Well, what we are doing, why we are here right now actually, is to sensitize and talk about these things.
Who is stealing the money?
No. You're being here sensitizing, but honestly, that's because we're here live on television. When our cameras go away, what are you doing towards making sure or raising the alarm that there's money that's not being spent the right way, educating the residents we had here yesterday to tell them be more involved in the running of county government affairs?
Well, for us, because of all the tricky question of clanism and because I lost some election,
that's an
but then that's not the issue. It's not. I'm not. We engage people. We talk to people, and we talk about. We try to educate them and about.
He's cutting around the issue. He's not saying it. Sally wants to say it.
Okay, I think from my perspective, it is a bit too early to be very harsh on county governments. At one point I said that the only people who lived in Wajir were old people, teachers, and students. Because everybody who completed school left for Nairobi. Now, professionals are coming back, whether to steal the county money or to actually do something. At least they are being seen in the towns now in northern Kenya. It's full of people who are originally living in Nairobi, now working for the county government. So I think what probably will happen in the next 5 to 6 years or 10 years, some change might actually happen. But
isn't that too long for the residents of Garissa to wait 5, 6, 10 years?
Let's look at it this way. Let's look at it this way. The governor of Mandera, I think, was talking about having received, for 50 years, the amount of money they received in 1 year, they didn't receive in Mandera. You understand? So, if you look at that kind of underdevelopment, if you put 6 billion there, how many 6 billions do you have to put before you actually see something happen?
But you've got to start somewhere, Salah. You have got to start somewhere.
Very truthful. If you walk around this city, there's so many big flashy cars and big hotels and big houses.
Yes.
Where's the money going to? Because if it's spending, today I was with some MCAs and I saw the MP and I saw some of the people. I can see all these flashy cars. Where's the money? Is that where the money is going to?
Probably yes. No, I'm not actually saying that there is no. This is Kenya.
Yeah.
You know, you have to open your eyes. This is Kenya. We had the golden bag. We'll have the golden bag of Garissa. We will have Garissa bag. We'll have Wajir bag, and even Mandera one, and maybe Moyale. The problems of corruption in this country is everywhere. All the problems we had in the central government has been developed.
Salah, he did mention a very good point, and Ahmed, you wanted to respond to that. Where is all this money coming from, and why isn't it going into development? A borehole here,
well, I
a
think
dispensary there.
With all due respect, all those flashy cars that you see around, well, I'm not trying to defend Garissa or the people of northern Kenya have been there before. These flashy cars or these buildings that you're seeing have been there before.
Oh,
it's not, I mean, we do not want to insinuate that people have looted the county government money and that's how they got their cars.
I don't think necessarily that's the insinuation.
New ones are also appearing.
No, but here is but here is the point: is that there is this money.
County money. We cannot.
That there is this money, and that it is not being used necessarily for development. And you said how many 6 billion shillings would it take? Yeah. However, you've got to start with somewhere. If you have 6 billion today, Ahmed, what would be the priorities that you would address? If today you were the deputy governor, what would be those issues, those projects that you would initiate that would, in the short term, in this 1 year, change the lives of Garissa residents?
Well, honestly, it will, and surely and realistically, it has to start with the basic needs. People here do not have the basic needs. And in this time, and I mean, in this 21st century that we are in, when we talk of the basic needs, we will also be taking of infrastructure, roads, health, education, those things that you'll see any politician singing about any time, but does not have a concrete solution for them. So about education, Salah has been mentioning that every year, thousands of students do their KCSE, but then very negligible or insignificant
so it would
number.
Go into a bursary? Or?
Yeah.
What
not really bursary.
Because
we have
today
enough
I'd like
bursaries.
us to have some
we
sort of
enough,
tangible, substantive.
But we do not have quality education here. Schools do not have facilities here.
Okay.
I mean, if you see the kind of institutions that we call schools, you'll be really so saddened and so shocked.
So schools?
So we need to invest in our schools, and that's actually, education is a basic need. We need to improve our health situation. Because for people who are not healthy, for people who have a high child mortality rate and high rate of mothers dying, during labor and all that,
yes.
yeah, that will be a society that is not bound to develop. And the other thing, which is very much obvious, is the road network. I mean, Garissa is a very big city now. I'll call it a city. But if you try to drive through Garissa, you've seen the difficulties that you'll face, and it is the same difficulty that you'll face if you are driving within Garissa County and outside Garissa County, going to Wajir, going to Mandela. I mean, a region that does not have a proper road network will surely not develop. So those are the things that I'll call the basic needs, and those are the things that needs to be addressed. But then, I'm not saying that the county governments are not addressing that. The county governments are addressing that. You'll see a lot of projects going there, going on. But are they being implemented in the right way? That's the issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay, all right. I'd like us to move into solutions now, and devolution is something that we have just mentioned in a way. Salah, TJRC report, and we will get into this now. The recommendations that were made from that, we know this report is yet to be implemented or even discussed at a very substantive level. What for you specifically regarding the TJRC, because they addressed a lot of the issues that we have brought up here in the course of this weekend?
I think the TJRC report came out is a very positive report in many ways. The recommendations are very positive, but Kenya has had 50 commissions, I think 50 plus something commissions, and they have had beautiful reports like the TJRC report. And the way it looks like now, we're going to shelve it too. So we're going to, the talk in Parliament was they want to water it down. They have already amended it. And I think we're not going to do much with it, but if they had the balls or the will to actually I don't know to actually bite the bullet and actually do the recommendations and implement
and that
them.
falls squarely in whose department?
In Parliament, on the government of Kenya, on the president, on everybody.
Stops with the president.
Yes.
But you see, sometimes it doesn't stop the president. Sometimes it stops with Parliament. If the Parliament does not agree to actually amend the TJRC Act, the law will actually do its part. So, I think, that's politics.
Now we're getting into politics now, but yes, we understand what you
mean. If you read the report, so many Kenyans so many people were recommended not to be given a public office. If you read the report. So we'll have started with that. First, deny those people public office. Right. Second, there was a recommendation to apologize to Kenyans. And it's not only Northern Kenya. If you read that report, it's like we're living in a war zone. If you read the report, you actually wonder, is this the Kenya that we are, or somebody concocted this thing? And it's all, and they have only put what they have had and what they have actually
So regarding the TJRC, for you, what needs to happen now?
What needs to happen? First, they need to do the actual recommendations, like barring people from holding public office.
Right.
Apology to those people who are aggrieved. There was reparations which I mentioned.
Well.
There was a part of developmental preference which was mentioned. One thing that I would have wanted that they start with is to do this road. As a preference.
All right. Okay. All right. Boniface, for you, solutions now? Very substantive.
I think for Garissa and the area, actually, Garissa has Tana River passing through here. Agriculture is key. They can actually invest in agriculture and feed the northern Kenya from this side going up. The second thing, they need to empower the girl child. They need to educate the girls. They need to actually introduce family planning. I think they're very, because of religion and other things, against family planning. It's needed. Slaughterhouse, they can be selling meat and providing meat. So the community is very pastoralist. Most of the people who live in this community are actually herders.
Right.
And so if you can actually be selling meat to Nairobi and even in other parts. Actually,
other counties, neighboring
counties used to export camels. Right. So that can actually happen. So agriculture is key, actually, and then empower girls, education. But beyond that, actually, they need to hold their leaders accountable. And there's a land issue in Garissa, which is actually going to come back and haunt you people. The land in Garissa was community land. Now people are taking title deeds everywhere, and there's Garissa town is becoming very small because there's been a lot of grabbing that has not been addressed. And I think overall there's need for courage in the community. There's a lot of fear among people. People are afraid of speaking out. There's a need for speaking out about what's going on, and even telling your own story. You have been blaming the media for telling the wrong story about the Garissa people and the northern Kenya. You need to become your own propaganda piece and start telling your own stories and saying what's going on in this county, and you tell us the positive stories. I think I wanted to come here with my biker friends, and they refused to ride with me because they'll be blown up in Garissa. And I haven't been blown up, so you need to tell the positive stories about Garissa.
Right, okay. Ahmed, finally from you, because we have a clip from the Wajir South MP, but yes, about telling those positive stories, but indeed also being the ones that,
Well, we have a role to play, actually, and courageously fight for our rights, and be our propaganda tools, as Boniface puts it. But then the media also. At this point in time, I do not want to look like, or we do not want to look like people who are blaming every institution, right, left, center, other than ourselves.
Right.
But then the media also needs to change the way they does things, because initially what was happening is that the media was depending on the government as a source, and the government has always been putting that Garissa is a security zone, or Northern Kenya is a security zone, there's insecurity there and all that. And then we'll have here a journalist here, a young journalist here, having that already information filled in his mind, and then he will try to substantiate that notion and all that. But then we have a role to play, and we have the social media and everything.
Indeed.
We can surely play a very big and important role in changing the perception of
everybody has a role to play. I'd like us to hear from Mohammed Diria, who's the Member of Parliament from Wajir South, to just wrap up our conversation on solutions towards inclusivity in the country.
It's a fact, it's a reality that the people of Northeastern, Garissa, Wajir, Mandera have been marginalized. And when we say that, a newcomer to Northeastern, from the moment you step out of Garissa town and you see how the road is, that's the time you know for sure this place is marginalized. Because all the way from Garissa to Mandera, 50 years down the line, we don't have even tarmac road. When other Kenyans are talking about rural roads that go to the villages, tarmacking, we even don't have the main tarmac road. We don't have a connection to the national electricity grid up to now. We don't have that. We don't have adequate water supply up to now. We are pastoralists. Our livestock don't even get enough veterinary officers and all those. But the reason I think why all this was, to be very frank, is government policy. Government policy, government policy. The government actually did not care. There was no, in other parts of the country, when there are problems, there's a deliberate policy or even regulations by the government to put in place measures to correct whatever problem is there. But in our case, there's no problem.
Right, and indeed that is where we leave it at now, but we believe we've come up with certain substantive solutions here, and it's up to the various persons involved to take up that mantle of implementing some of the things we have talked about here today. Our purpose of coming to Garissa, among other things, was to allow the residents of Garissa to speak up about their challenges, about their day-to-day lives. And if we can make a change in a small way, then our work here is done. And we believe we have done that this weekend and indeed tonight. Earlier on at 6:30, when Ferdinand Omondi had his panel, he spoke to a lady called Sophia Abdullahi. She had issues with a court case in the courts here in Garissa. She said she'd been having certain challenges with the senior state councils and, of course, with just getting her case moving forward. Tonight, we can report, as a result of having her on KTN Bottom Line, tonight, the office of the DPP has tonight asked for her contacts and will be getting in touch with her to make sure that her case moves along and that she gets the justice that she has so been looking forward to. Of course, that is what our job here is all about. And of course, Sophia, wherever you're watching us from, please do come back and get in touch with us, because we would like to put you in touch with the ODPP's office. And so some small little solutions here and there, and if we've done that for Sophia, definitely there's going to be a lot more that's coming out of this region. On behalf of the entire crew, and it takes quite a number of people to just get this operation going, who have been very positive in helping us in terms of just putting this broadcast out there, we thank them. I thank all the guests who have made the trip all the way from Nairobi to Garissa. Indeed, Garissa is not as unsafe as we may paint it to be or think that it is when we're in our Gardens of Eden in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, or wherever you're watching us from, even in the diaspora. And all the guests who made it here today, we thank them. On behalf of Muhammad Ali, Ferdinand Omondi, and Hamza Yusuf, who is based right here in Garissa County, we say thank you and goodbye. And we look forward to seeing you on the road again. We may be coming to a town, to a county near you. This is KTN Bottom Line. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your feedback. We take a short break. Edith Kimani will be back from the Standard Group Center with more news of the day.